Unit 21. Word list. Abolish. To abolish something means to put an end to it, such as a system or law.
President Lincoln abolished slavery in the U.S.
Amend. To amend something means to change it to improve or make it accurate.
The countries were in agreement that the treaty needed to be amended.
Aspire. To aspire means to have a strong desire to achieve or do something.
George aspired to be a doctor from a young age.
Censor. To censor information means to remove it if it is rude or rebellious.
To protect innocent people, the location of the bomb was censored.
Charter. A charter is a document that describes the rights of an organization or group.
The company charter explained that all employees had to pay a tax.
Constitution. A constitution is a document of principles for a government.
The country's constitution said a prime minister could only serve 3 terms.
Cosmopolitan. When a place is cosmopolitan, it is full of people from many different places.
There are dozens of different types of restaurants in a cosmopolitan city.
Disseminate. To disseminate information or knowledge means to distribute it.
The organization disseminates information about the dangers of smoking.
Flatter. To flatter people means to praise them in an effort to please them.
He was just flattering me when he said that my new dress looked gorgeous.
Infamous. When someone is infamous, they are well known for something bad.
That news channel is infamous for presenting biased information.
Lame. If one is lame, they cannot walk properly due to an injury to the leg or foot.
The terrible accident left many people dead and several others lame.
Limp. To limp means to walk with difficulty because someone's leg or foot is hurt.
After the injury, the player limped off of the field.
Outburst. An outburst is a sudden, strong expression of an emotion.
There was an outburst of cheers when the comedian took the stage.
Pathological. When a behavior is pathological, it is extreme, unacceptable, and uncontrollable.
The pathological liar could not even tell the truth about unimportant matters.
Phenomenal. When something is phenomenal, it is unusually great.
The child's ability to play the piano is nothing short of phenomenal.
Poll. A poll is a survey in which people give their opinions about important things.
The poll showed that many people support the plan to stop gang violence.
Remorse. Remorse is a strong feeling of sadness and regret.
When I realized what I did, I felt remorse for my actions.
Secrecy. Secrecy is the behavior of keeping things secret.
The secrecy of the big organization made the government nervous.
Tackle. To tackle something means to deal with it in a determined and efficient way.
Such social problems need to be tackled right away.
Trance. A trance is a state where people seem asleep and have no control of themselves.
The woman's powerful eyes often put me in a trance.
The mayor of Sherman. The cosmopolitan city of Sherman needed to elect a new mayor. 2 men aspired to become mayor, Mr. Jones and Mr. Webb. Mr. Jones was a tall, handsome man. He was a phenomenal speaker and the citizens loved him. However, Mr. Jones didn't know much about running a city. He was a pathological liar who merely flattered people with his words. Mr. Webb was very different. He was a small, unattractive man. He was lame and limped when he walked. But he was an expert on politics and knew what was best for the people. The citizens of Sherman didn't care about what the politicians had to say. No one listened to Mr. Webb, even though he had great ideas. They cheered when Mr. Jones spoke, although he didn't talk about important things. His pretty words put people in a trance. All the polls predicted that Mr. Jones would win the election. When the votes were totaled, Mr. Jones won easily. But when he took office, he didn't know what to do. He tried to hide his ignorance by working in secrecy. He added a law to the city's constitution that prevented citizens from seeing the mayor. He even censored newspapers that tried to disseminate information about his inability to help the people. Soon, however, Mr. Jones became infamous for his poor leadership. There was an outburst of anger among the citizens. They were full of remorse for their misguided decision to elect an ignorant mayor. They voted to remove Mr. Jones and let Mr. Webb take over. Immediately, Mr. Webb proved that he was a great mayor. He abolished Mr. Jones's law, and he was willing to talk openly with everyone. He tackled important issues and amended unfair laws in the city's charter. The citizens learned that a pleasant appearance and nice words do not make a good leader. The most important qualities are intelligence and a desire to help others. Unit 22. Word list. Coward. A coward is a person who lacks courage to do risky or dangerous things.
A firefighter cannot be a coward. They have to be able to act quickly.
Delete. To delete something means to remove or erase written material.
Several lines had been deleted from her speech.
First-hand. If something is first-hand, then it is from an original source.
If you want first-hand knowledge, ask someone who saw it.
Earnest. If someone is earnest, then they are honest.
The child was very earnest when she told her mother how she broke the dish.
Ethnic. If something is ethnic, then it is related to a group with a similar culture.
Many sections of the city are home to different ethnic communities.
Exclude. To exclude someone means to not accept them into a group.
Carol was excluded from the contest because her friend was a judge.
Fluent. If someone is fluent in a language, then they are able to speak it very well.
She was so fluent in German that you'd have thought she was from Germany.
Imperial. If something is imperial, then it is of or related to an empire.
These old imperial coins were once used in the Roman Empire.
Inclusive. If something is inclusive, then it is open to all groups and people in society.
A more inclusive event would have allowed children to attend.
Legislature. A legislature is the section of a government that makes laws.
The senator had served 10 years in the national legislature.
Linguistic. If something is linguistic, then it is concerned with language.
A linguistic way of studying culture focuses on words within that culture.
Monolingual. If someone is monolingual, then they speak only one language.
In today's global economy, being monolingual limits your opportunities.
Nationality. Nationality is an identity based on the nation from which you come.
His nationality is German, but he speaks French, Spanish, and Korean.
Patriot. A patriot is someone who loves, supports, and defends their country.
Every year, young patriots join their country's militaries.
Prosecute. To prosecute someone means to take legal action against them.
They were prosecuted for fishing in the river without a permit.
Racial. If something is racial, then it is related to race or races.
The differences between racial groups are physical characteristics and culture.
Solemn. If something is solemn, then it is serious and honest.
The professor preferred a solemn relationship between him and his students.
Solidarity. Solidarity is a union formed from common responsibilities or interests.
All the citizens came together in a show of solidarity to create change.
Tact. Tact is the ability to avoid offending people when dealing with problems.
Since both sides would not agree, it required someone with tact to make peace.
Undermine. To undermine someone means to betray or weaken their efforts or authority.
The documents helped to undermine the workers' trust in their boss's honesty. The editor's choice. A newspaper editor sat at his desk and stared at the flashing cursor on his computer screen. He didn't know if he should delete the article he had just written or go ahead and publish it. He was scared and filled with doubt. The empire had passed a new law stating that citizens could only use the imperial language. The editor disagreed with the law and decided to write an article about why it was wrong. He felt that the new law excluded people of different nationalities and racial and ethnic backgrounds. He had first-hand knowledge of what it feels like not to be fluent in the imperial language because he was from a remote part of the empire. He felt that the empire shouldn't be monolingual and should be more inclusive. Yet, he was afraid that he would get in trouble for having this belief. Many would say that he was not a patriot, that he didn't love the empire. But he didn't wish to undermine the authority of the empire. He wanted to argue that the empire could be stronger if it accepted people of various cultures and beliefs. At last, he decided to stop being a coward and to be earnest about how he felt. He wrote the article. It wasn't rude or angry, but rather very solemn and intelligent. The next day it was published in all the papers. Everyone was impressed by his tact and showed solidarity with his ideas. He expected to be arrested any day, but the police never came. Surprisingly, instead of being prosecuted, he became a hero. The legislature changed the law, and people from many linguistic backgrounds praised him. Never be afraid to be vocal, the editor later wrote. If you think something is wrong, then stand up for what you believe.
Unit 23. Word list. Allocate. To allocate something means to put it aside for a certain purpose or person.
The government allocated $100 million to aid the disaster relief effort.
Appetizing. When food is appetizing, it looks and smells very good.
The appetizing plate of cookies was gone in half an hour.
Blizzard. A blizzard is a severe snowstorm with strong winds.
We did not dare to go outside during the terrible blizzard.
Cavity. A cavity is a hole or space in something.
There was a small cavity in the wall of the cave where an animal lived.
Clockwise. If something moves clockwise, it moves in a circle in the same direction as a clock.
Turn the screw clockwise to tighten it.
Concentric. When circles or rings are concentric, they have the same center.
The target was a series of concentric circles.
Courtesy. Courtesy is the excellence of manners or social conduct.
Jenna always behaves with great courtesy when people visit her home.
Crisp. When food is crisp, it is hard or has a hard surface in a way that is pleasant.
My favorite snack is a bag of crisp, delicious potato chips.
Discord. Discord is disagreement or fighting between people.
There was much discord between the experts on the talk show.
Frigid. When something is frigid, it is extremely cold.
We decided not to go on the hike because the weather was too frigid.
Generate. To generate something means to cause it to develop or begin.
The mayor promised to generate new jobs and programs to help the poor.
Glacial. When something is glacial, it relates to large masses of ice that move slowly.
Penguins thrive in the glacial regions of Antarctica.
Interchange. An interchange of ideas between people is a discussion of each person's idea.
There was an interchange of ideas between the groups.
Locker. A locker is a small cabinet with a lock where people store their possessions.
I keep my school books in my locker.
Multicultural. When something is multicultural, it relates to many different cultures.
Everyone was welcome to attend the multicultural celebration.
Omission. An omission is something that has been left out or not done.
Mike was upset because of the omission of his name during the ceremony.
Oversee. To oversee something means to make sure that it is being done properly.
His job was to oversee the progress of the construction project.
Pierce. To pierce something means to make a hole in it using a sharp object.
The arrow pierced the target in the very center.
Replicate. To replicate something is to do it in the exact same way as someone before.
I would love to replicate my father's achievements in school.
Wavy. When something is wavy, it is not straight but has a series of curves.
The child drew wavy lines all over the piece of paper.
The Ice House. Last year, Eric constructed one of the world's strangest houses in the glacial landscape of northern Sweden. He called it the Ice House, a house made entirely of ice and snow. All of the beds, chairs, tables, and walls are cold, hard sculptures of ice. A group of architects and volunteers from all over the world traveled to the site of the ice house and began its construction. The multicultural group journeyed through blizzards and frigid temperatures to reach the site. Once the builders arrived, there was an interchange of ideas and tools were allocated to each worker. An expert was selected to oversee the building process to make sure there was no discord between the workers. Once a plan was generated, they got right to work. The design was very unique. The builders couldn't replicate the design from normal houses. The first step was to build the walls and ceiling. The builders used a metal frame to help them build the structure. After the ice was in place, the frame was removed. The builders then created furniture and art pieces. Designs were carved into each piece. One worker carved big wavy lines, and another made tiny clockwise concentric circles. Finally, the workers carved small cavities in the roof and inserted colored lights. When the work was finished, the beautiful house was ready for a resident to enjoy. Living in the ice house is an experience like no other. Eric stores his belongings in an ice locker and lays out a sleeping bag on his ice bed. At dinner, he dines on a delicious salad with crisp toppings. And for the main course, he enjoys appetizing fish caught from a nearby river. The fish are pierced with icicles and served on ice plates. After dinner, he gets ready for a cold night. The omission of heaters can be too much for his visitors sometimes. Luckily, there are warm rooms nearby, as a courtesy to people who get too cold. Unit 24. Word list. Abide. To abide by something, like a rule, means to obey it.
If you want to play the game with us, you must be willing to abide by our rules.
Conversion. Conversion is the act of changing something into a different state or form.
The city discussed the conversion of the parking lot into a skateboard park.
Cram. To cram things means to put them into a place that can barely contain them.
He crammed all of his shirts into the top drawer of the dresser.
Defer. To defer means to arrange for an action to happen at a later time.
The girl was very sleepy, so she chose to defer her bath until morning.
Export. To export products means to sell them to other countries.
The United States exports many cereals and grains.
Fume. Fumes are unhealthy smoke and gases that are made by fires or chemicals.
The engine put unpleasant black fumes into the air.
Habitual. If something is habitual, it is a behavior that a person usually does or has.
The man was a habitual liar who was incapable of being honest with the police.
Justify. To justify something means to show or prove that it is necessary.
The government tried to justify its decision to bring the country into a war.
Output. Output is the amount of something that a person or thing produces.
The boss hired more workers to increase the factory's output of products.
Overpopulation. Overpopulation is the state of having too many people in an area.
The organization is concerned with overpopulation of the world.
Patent. A patent is a right to be the only person allowed to make or sell a new product.
He quickly established a patent for his brilliant invention.
Penalize. To penalize someone means to punish him or her.
The team was penalized when they broke the rules.
Petroleum. Petroleum is a liquid natural resource from which many fuels are made.
The petroleum at that factory is used to make gasoline.
Prototype. A prototype is a new machine that is not ready to be made in large quantities.
He introduced his prototype to the motorcycle company.
Scrap. A scrap of something is a small amount of it.
Chris liked to use many scraps of paper when thinking up ideas.
Sector. A sector is a part of a country's economy in a specific type of industry.
We learned about just a few of the factories within the manufacturing sector.
Subscribe. To subscribe to something is to agree or to concur with it.
She subscribed to the view that musical education should be kept in schools.
Subsist. To subsist means to have the food, water, and money needed to stay alive.
Some people are forced to subsist on only a few dollars a month.
Suspend. To suspend something means to delay or stop it from happening for a while.
The oil company suspended production until it was sure the factory was safe.
Synthesis. A synthesis is a combination of different ideas or styles.
The band's music was a synthesis of many different musical genres. Preparing of the future. Overpopulation is a big problem in the world today. Too many people are crammed into cities and towns around the globe. Earth's population is about 6.5 billion people. This number is growing every day. In just 50 years, the population will be almost 9 billion. Many people worry that the Earth won't have enough resources to support so many people. One major reason for this is that wasting resources and polluting have become habitual behaviors. Industrial output results in polluting the air with dangerous fumes. Also, cars and machines waste a ton of important natural resources like oil and water. It's possible that the Earth may become so damaged that it cannot support a large population of humans. Another issue is the lack of useful land for cultivating crops. Even today, many people subsist on mere scraps of food and little water. In 50 years, many experts worry that huge numbers of people will starve to death. So what is being done to prepare for the future? People are realizing they can no longer justify their wasteful behavior or defer action to fix it. Many car companies already have patents on prototypes for very efficient cars. Such cars waste no resources and produce no pollution. A conversion to clean cars means that petroleum can be saved for the future. In addition, the environmental sectors of many governments are setting strict rules for industries that pollute too much. If companies do not abide by the standards, they are penalized with higher taxes. In some cases, their operations might be suspended altogether. Food is also an issue that is being tackled. Many countries are now subscribing to the point of view that immediate action is needed. They are determining ways to export goods to people in need so that no one goes hungry. Experts will continue to come up with ideas for the future, and a synthesis of these ideas will help to support the growing population.
Unit 25. Word list. Acrobat. An acrobat is a person who entertains people by doing amazing physical things.
There were acrobats at the circus that did impressive and complicated jumps.
Advocacy. Advocacy is the act of supporting or recommending something.
Janine's strong advocacy for the event made people want to attend.
Communal. If something is communal, it involves a group of people.
On the weekends, Theo and his son picked up trash in the communal park.
Fluid. If something is fluid, it is smooth and moves gracefully.
Boris was a famous ballet dancer because people admired his fluid movements.
Harmonize. To harmonize means to make different things go well together.
The sweet and sour flavors of the dish harmonized well and tasted great.
Industrious. If someone is industrious, they work hard.
Dennis was very industrious, so he never had problems finding a job.
Inventive. When someone is inventive, they are good at creating new things.
The inventive student built a robot to help her with her chores.
Judicial. If something is judicial, it is related to judges or courts of law.
The laws changed the way the judicial system was structured.
Mandarin. Mandarin is one of the two main Chinese languages.
Although John's parents both spoke Mandarin, he could only speak English.
Metropolitan. If something is metropolitan, it relates to a large city.
All of the metropolitan excitement of New York City made Rufus nervous.
Mimic. To mimic something means to copy the way it sounds or moves.
The hunter mimicked a duck's call and shot the two ducks that called back.
Misguided. When something is misguided, it is based on bad judgment or wrong beliefs.
The snake bit Molly during her misguided attempt to grab it.
Rehearse. To rehearse means to practice and prepare for a performance in front of people.
Vic's band rehearsed all week before their first show.
Scorn. To scorn someone means to behave without respect toward them.
The criminal was scorned by everyone in the community.
Sensory. If something is sensory, it is related to the senses.
Iris and Eric preferred the sensory thrill of watching movies in the theater.
Staple. If something is staple, it is standard or basic.
Hamburgers, steaks, and hot dogs are staple foods to cook on a grill.
Statute. A statute is a law that is official and has been written down.
The new statute made it illegal to walk dogs in the park.
Veteran. A veteran is someone who has a lot of experience doing something.
Hank was the team veteran and had played in more games than anyone else.
Villain. A villain is an evil person who breaks the law or hurts others.
The villain escaped with half of my family's valuables.
Vine. A vine is a plant that has long twisting stems and climbs upward.
The branches of the trees were covered with vines.
100 plays. Over 2,000 years ago, Chinese farmers had a problem. Even though they were very industrious, the weather became too cold outside to plant their staple food, rice. So what did they do? Since they had so much free time during the long cold winters, the inventive farmers started performing tricks to entertain themselves. They used their farm tools and anything they could find to make their tricks more spectacular. They even twisted their bodies into crazy shapes and performed awesome jumps. Over time, they became great acrobats, and their art form came to be known as 100 plays. 100 plays involves doing many kinds of tricks. For example, in Mandarin-speaking parts of China, performers do the lion dance. They wear costumes and mimic the animal's movements. Early performers also did tricks on ropes and vines that were high above the ground. Even though the acrobats' fluid movements may have looked easy, they took a lot of work. Learning 100 plays is a communal event. A veteran of the acrobatic arts usually teaches younger people in the village. They spend a lot of time rehearsing. The young performers also learn an old philosophy. The teachings help them harmonize the sensory aspects of acrobatics with mental aspects. In other words, it teaches them to use their physical and mental strength together. Since the art has its origins with poor farmers, rich people used to scorn acrobats. They thought acrobats were villains. The rich people thought the acrobats just wanted to trick them. But later, their misguided opinions changed. Acrobats came to be respected in Chinese society. They were invited to perform in metropolitan areas as well as in small villages. They performed for important people, including judicial officers. Arts advocacy groups convinced the government to support Chinese acrobatics. As a result, there is now a statute that made several villages the center of training future acrobats. Unit 26. Word list. Constrain. To constrain something means to limit its development.
Jim cannot join us because he is constrained by previous plans.
Depot. A depot is a bus or train station.
He waited for his mother to arrive at the depot.
Emulate. To emulate people means to imitate them because they are greatly admired.
As a small boy, he always tried to emulate his big brother.
Forefinger. The forefinger is the finger between one's thumb and middle finger.
He shouted, "There it is," and pointed with his forefinger.
Guts. The guts are all the organs inside a person or animal.
The doctor can tell you every process that happens in one's guts.
Inherent. When something is inherent, it is a natural part of something else.
Sweating is an inherent bodily function when exercising.
Intimidate. To intimidate means to frighten others.
My dad intimidates my friends whenever they visit.
Janitor. A janitor is a person who makes repairs and takes care of a building.
The school janitor cleaned up the messy cafeteria.
Moist. When something is moist, it is slightly wet.
The ground is still moist from the rain last night.
Nope. Nope is an informal way of saying no.
He asked if I had any money, and I had to say nope.
Prod. To prod means to push someone or something with a finger or pointed object.
The bully prodded me in the chest with his finger.
Ransom. A ransom is a sum of money paid to a kidnapper to set the person free.
He kidnapped the prince and demanded $1 million as ransom.
Restrain. To restrain someone or something means to use physical strength to stop them.
Mike restrained Alan from reaching the door.
Saliva. Saliva is the watery liquid in people's mouths that helps in digestion.
The baby could not keep the saliva from dripping out of its mouth.
Spit. To spit means to force liquid from one's mouth.
He emerged from the pool and spit water from his mouth.
Sprint. To sprint means to run very fast over a short distance.
The kids didn't want to be late to class, so they sprinted to the bus stop.
Stunt. A stunt is something that is done in order to get attention or publicity.
The man jumped over the cars as a promotional stunt.
Tolerant. When people are tolerant, they are approved of because they accept others.
The tolerant leader thought that everyone was equal, regardless of race.
Vampire. A vampire is a fictional monster that sleeps in a coffin and sucks people's blood.
The vampire snuck up on the woman and bit her in the neck.
Yawn. To yawn means to open one's mouth wide and breathe in air.
The child yawned and stretched her arms before bed for the night. The kidnapping. Anne was a very quiet girl who had an inherent fear of almost everything. The kids at school would play tricks on her all the time. They would hide behind the door of the school janitor's closet, then jump out to scare her. Once, A boy dressed up like a vampire and chased her down the street. Anne hated being constrained by her fears, but she didn't know how to be brave. She was walking home from school one day when someone came up behind her. Before she could turn around, a powerful man grabbed her. She couldn't scream because a huge hand was put over her mouth. Anne knew that this could not be another stunt by her classmates. The scary man restrained her arms and legs and carried her to his house. He tied Anne to a chair. Her guts began to hurt because she was so scared. The man prodded Anne with his forefinger and said, "You'll stay right here until I get a ransom from your parents. Then I'll be rich." The dirty man spit when he talked. A string of saliva hung from his moist lips. Anne was terrified and intimidated by the horrible man, but she knew she had to escape somehow. Eventually, the man yawned. Anne waited quietly until he fell asleep. As he slept, she carefully wiggled her arms and legs until the ropes became loose. She slipped out of the ropes and carefully opened the door. She sprinted to the bus depot and boarded a bus to the police station. She told the police what happened, and they arrested the kidnapper. The kids at school were amazed. They asked her, "Weren't you too scared to escape?" She said, "Nope, I knew that I had to be brave and get out of there." The kids were very tolerant of Anne from then on. They even decided that they would emulate her bravery if they ever got into a tough situation.
Unit 27. Word list. Analogy. An analogy is a connection made between things to show that they are similar.
The doctor made an analogy between the human heart and a water pump.
Ancestry. A person's ancestry is the series of people from whom a person descended.
We studied our ancestry and found out that we are related to royalty.
Archer. An archer is a person who uses a bow and arrows.
The expert archer hit the target every time.
Conspiracy. A conspiracy is a secret plan made by a group of people to do something illegal.
Some people think that there was a conspiracy to kill American President John Kennedy.
Deputy. A deputy is the second highest ranking person in a business or government.
While the sheriff was ill, the deputy took over his duties.
Earl. An earl is a nobleman from Britain.
The Earl of Canterbury lived in a huge mansion.
Fragrant. When something is fragrant, it has a pleasant smell.
The girl picked delicious berries and fragrant flowers.
Funnel. A funnel is an object with a wide top and a narrow bottom for pouring liquids.
The worker used a funnel when he poured the oil into the engine.
Hereditary. If something is hereditary, it is a trait passed on to children from their parents.
The hereditary disease affected 3 generations of children.
Hymn. A hymn is a religious song that often praises a god.
The book was filled with hymns that the worshippers sang.
Invert. To invert something means to turn it upside down.
He inverted the bicycle to make repairs on the wheels.
Prey. Prey is the animals that are hunted and eaten by another creature.
The lion ran as fast as he could to catch his prey.
Procession. A procession is a group of people who walk or drive in a line during a public event.
The procession all celebrated when they reached the end.
Prophet. A prophet is a person chosen by a god to give the god's message to people.
Harold believed that he was one of the prophets of his god.
Sarcastic. When something is sarcastic, it is the opposite of what is actually meant.
She hurt her mother's feelings with her constant sarcastic remarks.
Seasoning. Seasoning is a mix of salt, herbs, and spices that improves the taste of food.
This steak tastes bland. Maybe I'll add some seasoning to it.
Sodium. Sodium is an element that can be used to make substances such as salt.
Sodium and chloride combine to make table salt.
Tyranny. A tyranny is a cruel and unfair government in which one person has power.
His tyranny was impossible to live under.
Tyrant. A tyrant is someone who treats people in a cruel, harsh, and unfair way.
Our boss is a tyrant. He makes us work long hours for little pay.
Vinegar. Vinegar is a strong liquid made from sour wine that is used in cooking.
Be careful because too much vinegar will ruin the recipe.
Unit 28. Word list. Adjoining. If something is adjoining, it is next to or joined with a building or room.
I couldn't sleep because the people in the adjoining room were loud.
Allege. To allege something is to say that it is true without offering proof.
The little girl had alleged that her older brother hid her favorite doll.
Arch. An arch is a curved opening formed under a structure such as a bridge or doorway.
The arch of the bridge was not high enough for the tall boat to pass underneath.
Assemble. To assemble means to get together in one place.
The parents assembled to discuss ways to improve their children's education.
Casualty. A casualty is a person killed or injured in a war or an accident.
The only casualty in the car accident was a woman who broke her arm.
Erect. To erect something means to build it.
The king erected 2 towers on the north and south sides of his castle.
Foul. If something is foul, then it is not pleasant or enjoyable.
He wouldn't let his dog drink from the water because it had a foul smell.
Hectare. A hectare is a unit of measure equal to 10,000 square meters.
His family farm covered many hectares.
Heighten. To heighten an emotion means to increase the intensity of it.
The pleasant music heightened their enjoyment of the wonderful dinner.
Hospitality. Hospitality is friendly behavior and entertainment given to guests or strangers.
The travelers were amazed at the hospitality given them by the hotel staff.
Mansion. A mansion is a large and expensive home.
The mansion had 30 bedrooms, 2 kitchens, and a pool.
Outnumber. To outnumber a group means to have a greater number than it.
The girls outnumbered the boys at the school by 4 to 1.
Overjoyed. If someone is overjoyed, then they are extremely happy.
He was overjoyed by the news of his promotion.
Pasture. A pasture is an area of land covered with grass for animals to use as food.
The sheep were taken to a pasture where there was more grass.
Petition. A petition is a written request asking an authority to do something.
The citizens all signed a petition asking the mayor to repair the sidewalks.
Renovate. To renovate a building means to repair it or build new structures on it.
The old fire station was renovated into an apartment building.
Revise. To revise something means to change or update it to make it better.
When the editor discovered certain facts were wrong, he revised the book.
Slab. A slab is a large, thick, flat piece of stone, concrete, metal, or wood.
I looked at various slabs of stone to decorate my house.
Terrace. A terrace is an open area that is connected to a house or an apartment.
In the afternoons, she liked to sit on the terrace and check her email.
Turf. Turf is a section of grass and the dirt in which it grows.
After the game, the turf looked ragged. The Lord and the Farmers. A wealthy lord was renovating his mansion. He had added another story to his home with large windows that overlooked the farmer's pastures on the eastern border of his land. Around the mansion, he then erected a great wall. He built an arch for the gate out of huge slabs of stone. The lord was overjoyed with the addition to his home. However, one day while he was sitting on the terrace, some farmers knocked at his door. He invited them in. Despite his hospitality, the farmers appeared to be in a foul mood. "Why are you so upset?" the lord asked. One farmer replied, "That is actually the reason for our visit." He then handed the lord a petition. It alleged that the shadow cast by the mansion was harming their pastures. "Your mansion now casts a shadow over several hectares of our land," the farmer explained. "The turf in the shadow has died, and our cattle now have less grass to eat." "It is too late for me to revise my plans," the lord answered. "You will just have to live with the change." His reply only heightened the farmers' anger. They left, but they assembled that night outside the mansion's gate. They planned to destroy the mansion. The lord's servants tried to defend the house, but the farmers outnumbered them. The servants fled, and the farmers rushed into the mansion and set it on fire. Everyone got out of the house, and there were no casualties. However, the fire soon spread from the house to the adjoining pastures that belonged to the farmers. Both sides' properties were destroyed. The lord and the farmers were sorry for their actions. The lord promised to pay for the burned pastures, and the farmers promised to rebuild the mansion. They had learned that when you fight, both sides lose.
Unit 29. Word list. Analogous. If something is analogous to another thing, then it is like it in certain ways.
The relationship with his teacher was analogous to that of a son and mother.
Binoculars. Binoculars are a device used for seeing things that are far away.
He could see the ship on the horizon only if he used his binoculars.
Bulk. The bulk of something is its great size.
The large elephant moved its bulk with legs as strong as tree trunks.
Comprise. If something comprises something else, it consists of or is made up of it.
Our school's football team is mostly comprised with seniors.
Depict. To depict something means to show or portray it, often using art.
The statue's face depicted the general's determination and courage.
Dual. If something is dual, then it is made up of two parts.
The room had a dual function. It was a living room, but at night it was a bedroom.
Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit temperature is a scale where water freezes at 32 degrees and boils at 212 degrees.
When the temperature dropped at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, it started snowing.
Fulfill. To fulfill something means to achieve or finish it.
The professor did not fulfill his promise not to miss a single class.
Grove. A grove is a small group of trees.
All the trees in this grove are apple trees.
Ore. Ore is the raw form of rock or material from which a valuable metal is taken.
The factory melted the ore and used it to make iron products.
Outback. The outback is the wild inland region of Australia where very few people live.
Many Australian farmers use the outback to raise cattle.
Outweigh. To outweigh something means to exceed it in value, amount, or importance.
Finding a warm place to sleep outweighed the need to find something to eat.
Paradox. A paradox is a true statement or real event that seems illogical.
The paradox of her work was that the less she worked, the more she got done.
Pier. A pier is a structure that extends into a body of water.
If you want to catch bigger fish, then go to the far end of the pier.
Shortcut. A shortcut is a route that is shorter than the main route.
We got to the house first because we took a shortcut through the forest.
Tariff. A tariff is a tax or fee paid on certain imports or exports.
Our tariff on imported wool makes foreign wool more expensive.
Thermometer. A thermometer is a device that measures temperature.
The thermometer outside the window indicated that it was a hot day today.
Tilt. To tilt something means to tip it into a sloping position.
She tilted her glass and almost spilled some of the wine inside.
Vice versa. If a statement is vice versa, then its two main ideas are switched with one another.
Students learn from their teachers and vice versa.
Whereabouts. The whereabouts of someone or something is the place where they are.
The police looked for the lost dog, but its whereabouts were still unknown.
The shortcut. A truck driver was driving cargo from the outback to the coast. His load was comprised of many types of ore. He needed a huge truck to carry its bulk to a ship waiting at a pier on the country's eastern coast. At the border between two counties, he'd have to pay a tariff on the cargo. However, he could keep his money if he avoided the station at the border. He worried about getting in trouble for not paying the tariff, but the thought of extra money outweighed this concern. He took out his road map. To his surprise, it depicted a small road that had a dual advantage. It not only avoided the border station but also was a shorter route to the coast. He decided to take the shortcut. However, along his journey he soon ran into problems. First, he had to cross a small wooden bridge. His truck weighed too much for the bridge. It was analogous to an elephant trying to stand on a tree branch. The bridge started to break as the truck crossed, and the trailer tilted to the right. Fortunately, the truck made it safely across, but most of the ore fell into the river below. Next, it was a very hot day. The thermometer read over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The truck's engine became too hot, so the driver parked it in the shade of a grove of trees until it cooled down. Later, he took a wrong turn. He stopped and took out his binoculars. He scanned his surroundings and eventually discovered a landmark that led him back to the proper route. Finally, he arrived at the pier, but the ship wasn't there. When he asked about the ship's whereabouts, a man said that it had left 30 minutes ago. He had not fulfilled his duty. He realized then the paradox of the shortcut. The shortest route can be the longest, and vice versa, a long route may be the fastest. Unit 30. Word list. Amber. Amber is a hard, yellowish material that comes from trees.
The necklace was made from pieces of amber.
Charcoal. Charcoal is a black material that is used as fuel for fire.
There was burnt charcoal left on the ground from an old fire.
Columnist. A columnist is a writer who creates articles about a particular subject.
The columnist won praise for his articles about life on the farm.
Courteous. When someone is courteous, they are polite and respectful.
The mother asked her family to be courteous to their guests.
Credentials. Credentials are the proof of someone's experience or ability to do something.
The mechanic hung his credentials on his office wall.
Cricket. A cricket is an insect that makes loud noises, usually at night.
In the country, we could see the stars and hear the crickets at night.
Delta. A delta is a flat area where a river splits into smaller rivers that flow into the sea.
The archaeologists found many ancient materials in the delta of the Nile River.
Detergent. Detergent is soap that is used to clean clothes or dishes.
My brother added too much detergent to the wash and bubbles got all over the floor.
Euphemism. A euphemism is a term that is used in place of a mean or unpleasant word.
Window maintenance officer is a euphemism for a window washer.
Expire. To expire is to no longer be effective because its use has come to an end.
The man's driver's license was going to expire in 2 days.
Granite. Granite is a very hard type of rock that is often black or pink.
The kitchen counter was made of granite.
Gravel. Gravel is a combination of small stones mixed with sand.
The ground around the swing set was covered with gravel.
Haunt. To haunt is to cause problems or negative thoughts over a long period of time.
His thoughts about his scary dream haunted him for weeks.
Liberal. When someone is liberal, they accept different ideas and people.
My grandparents aren't as liberal as my parents.
Maze. A maze is a system of paths that is complicated and easy to get lost in.
We got lost in the maze in the garden.
Moss. Moss is a small green or yellow plant that grows on wet dirt, rocks, or tree trunks.
Be careful not to slip on the moss that's covering those rocks.
Pebble. A pebble is a small round stone.
We threw pebbles into the lake to make the water splash.
Peck. When a bird pecks, it bites or hits something with its beak.
The birds pecked at the seeds on the ground.
Reservoir. A reservoir is a place for storing water for a town to use.
If it doesn't rain soon, the reservoir is going to dry up completely.
Streak. A streak is a long, thin mark that is easy to see.
Her hair was brown except for a streak which she dyed blonde. The Mad Hatter. One morning, Lucas sat outside with his grandfather. They looked past the gravel road that led to a natural reservoir on the delta. On the other side of the water there was a cottage. "Does a ghost live there?" Lucas asked. "No, a Mad Hatter lives there," said his grandfather. Lucas didn't know what a Mad Hatter was, but the image of a scary man haunted him. Later, Lucas went for a walk in the forest. He collected pieces of amber and granite that he found on the ground. He looked at the moss on the trees and watched a bird peck at the ground. But the forest was like a maze. Soon, Lucas was lost. Lucas heard somebody behind him. He wanted to run away, but he fell. He had a streak of blood on his shirt and some pebbles stuck in his skin. Then a man appeared. "I will take you home. First, let's get you cleaned up," he said. Lucas followed him. When they arrived at the cottage, he realized the man was the Mad Hatter. He sat down inside. It smelled like charcoal, but it looked like a normal house. The man brought Lucas back some medicine. "It's a bit old, but it's not expired," the man said. While Lucas cleaned his cut, the man washed the blood out of his shirt with detergent. Lucas asked, "Are you a Mad Hatter?" The man laughed and replied, "That's a euphemism for a crazy person. Actually, I'm pretty normal. I'm a columnist for a newspaper," said the man. He pointed to his credentials which hung on the wall. Lucas could hear the crickets outside. It was getting dark, so he asked, "Could you take me home now?" The man said yes. Lucas was surprised that people thought the man was crazy. He was actually very courteous. Maybe Lucas should have a more liberal attitude. Next time, Lucas wouldn't make judgments about people without getting to know them first.